Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guests for episode 218 are drummer Michael Shrieve and vocalist STEPHEN Dees of NOVO COMBO. Michael Shrieve, of course, known for his work on the early SANTANA albums, as well as the HSAS project with Sammy Hagar and Neil Schon, as well as numerous studio sessions on popular albums throughout the years. STEPHEN Dees, of course, known for his work with the BANDEES in the 1990s and into the 2000s. He also worked with Pat Travers for a brief time. Back in the early 80s, Stephen and Michael came together with Jack Griffith on guitar and Pete Hewlett on guitar and vocals as well to form NOVO COMBO. NOVO COMBO made a name for themselves in the club circuit in New York City. They went on to release 2 studio albums after signing with Polydor. Their self-titled album in 81 and Animation Generation in 1982. Recently, all original members of NOVO COMBO have reunited for a new album, which blends the past and the present. It's called 45 West 55th. It came out on October 18th through Wild Root Records. Fantastic conversation here with Michael Shrieve and STEPHEN Dees, although I could have just let them interview and talk to each other. We got some great information here. Find out a little bit of the history of NOVO COMBO and the latest album. Hear it right from Michael Shrieve and STEPHEN Dees. Here we go. Michael, if I knew absolutely nothing about NOVO COMBO, how would you describe the band's music to me?
I would say it was a rock pop band based in New York City in the 80s, letting itself be influenced by kind of a punk thing that was coming inside there, plus drawing all of our past experiences from the groups that we had played in, to present itself. Also, to try to make a band that's a 4-piece group where every note counts. Not a lot of fluff, not a lot of bullshit, just great songs and great arrangements that each of us as individual musicians put our best into crafting those songs to be the best they can be.
Stephen, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I agree with what Michael just said. Yeah, it was, really, exactly. I mean, taking all of our experience that we had, and then also, knowing what was happening at the time in New York and Great Britain and just what was going on. And because you're always influenced by different things, but mainly you present yourself and what you've been through, and you bring that to the table. And the whole purpose of the band was that everybody were equals and strong, and really good at what they did. And I think we accomplished that.
So NOVO COMBO has a new release out. It came out on October 18th. It's called 45 West 55th. It came out through Wild Roots Records. Stephen, the band was dormant since 1983. What brought everybody back together?
Well, I was reviewing some stuff. A good friend of mine passed away a few years ago, a drummer friend of mine that I've known since I was a kid. And so I was going through all of my library of music, listening to stuff that we had done, me and Eddie, in the past. But then as I was going through all that stuff, there was a bunch of NOVO COMBO stuff and a bunch of, my entire life, really. And but when I started listening to the NOVO COMBO music, I was like, wow, what a great band this was. I mean, really, I was really stoked about how good we were. And a real band, and where everybody contributed. And I was just like, it was business made it crazy and all this kind of stuff. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, it was just a really good band. And I love these guys. And I was like, well, let's take back our, legacy sort of, because there's been people out there selling our other records that, they're not, it's illegal. Basically, they're ripping us off and selling our music and not paying us anything, publishing nothing. And so it was like, let's take back our life. You know what I mean? Let's get this together and see what we can do, come up with. And we started a conversation, and that led to where we are now.
Michael, the songs on the new album, they're a combination of stuff that was released before, re-recorded, and some lost songs. Am I correct on that?
That's correct. Yeah. What Stephen found in going through everything was the amount of demo music that we recorded before getting a record was quite substantial. And there were some good recordings made by some of the best engineers in the studios in New York City. And so in listening to those things, oftentimes they're 2 tracks, they're not multi-tracks, right? So they're already a 2-track mix. We could possibly add to that. We didn't make rules about it, except that, let's make it as best it can be and make the best choices of what people are coming up with, mainly Stephen and his wife, Patty. So they were the force behind this, and there was a good amount of material, and then people wanted to try to do some new stuff as well. And there was other material that we had recorded that never was put out before. So it took a while to go through everything and make everything right, and we're doing it long distance as well, right? So, but that was the way it was. That was the way it happened.
Stephen, how long did it take to kind of get this album finalized from start to finish, going back and forth through file sharing? And I'm guessing this started during the pandemic sometime as well.
Yeah, it did. Well, it took a couple years because, we all have our whatever we had going on. I play with other people. Michael does a lot of stuff. And so, I mean, you have certain blocks of time. You go, okay, I can work on this now, the NOVO COMBO stuff, or I can, got to do this other thing right now. So I had to do, I have other bands I have to, produce and work with. And so it was just a matter of getting the timing right, and also getting, the proper agreeing upon what we want, and where we're going, and, and doing it, and that takes a bit of time. So, because we did a lot, file sharing, back and forth for the new stuff. We actually have 5 new recordings that we did for this record. And let me just say, preface this, I got this idea from the Beatles anthology, because well, I love the Beatles. I'm a Beatle freak. But anyway, so in our own humble way, of course, it was like, well, they took songs that you never heard, demos of things you never heard, and did some new songs. I mean, we did more new songs than they did because we could, But so that's what we did. And when you go back, some of these demos are songs that actually made it to the first record. But what I found in listening to some of these demos, because we literally did go in, like every time we do a demo, we go in for like an afternoon and play several songs. And it was like, boom, it was like we would perform as a band, and very little overdubbing. Sometimes there was no overdubbing, I think. And like Michael said, went right to 2-track, and only because there were such good engineers in New York, and we, worked with good places. I mean, they were so good, they did a great job at doing that. But what I love about it, there's an urgency and a rawness to people going in and just laying it down. Boom, here it is. This is what we are. And so that is just great. I mean, I love that on some of the tracks, that it's just us. Okay, now you're on, go, boom, there it is, next. So that's exciting. It was very fruitful, and I love that about those songs. They sound, and some of them do sound a little bit better even than the record. There's something, that was happening. I mean, you've heard that story a million times. People go, oh, the demo was better. Well, sometimes it is.
Yeah, once the label gets their hand in there, and then the producer gets their hand in there, sometimes it waters down demos all the time.
Sometimes, yes.
yeah, it also speaks to how much we rehearsed and how much we were gigging around town before we were ever signed. So we were really a working band, and a serious working band, where we had the opportunity that we could rehearse every day, and we did. We took this thing, we made it like a job. This was, we weren't slouching around. We rehearsed our asses off, and we played any gig we could get. And so what I'm referring to is how tight we were in the studio, as Stephen was talking about. We'd go in and just lay down a track without overdubs or second take, because we were prepared.
Michael, must have been a little weird doing things differently with these group of guys in the modern era, where everything's kind of done in your home recording studios and it's not about rehearsing and laying it down. You're just in there with yourself to bounce off the wall, right?
You mean with the latest incarnation of this?
Yes.
Yeah, it was definitely, but I've been already doing that a lot, and so I know where I can go to lay some drums down, or if I have some pads or something at home. But we all worked out a way, like who's an engineer. This is a process for me to try to get to the point where I didn't need an engineer during the whole thing, but I did not succeed at that. So that's an ever evolving thing where somebody sends me something and I can just put it down and it'll sound good. But I actually don't mind this kind of process whatsoever. I mean, I have another record that I have out now that I found a percussionist from Frankfurt, Germany, on Instagram, and I fell in love with this guy so much I put him on everything that I was working on. So I love it that we can just open it up and be able to communicate like this. It's fine. Nothing ever replaces making music together in a room together. So I'll say that, but I think we've gotten used to this methodology.
Yep. Steve, I know you mentioned earlier that, four-piece band, all four guys have an input. When it came to songwriting, did all four guys contribute lyrics and music, or were there specific lyricists? How did it work for the band?
Well, it worked in any way possible. It's like, bottom line is it a good song? We don't care who wrote it or what, and everybody had to like it. If we didn't, then it was like, next. So, which is great, that's what makes a strong band, when you have people that have some sort of taste and put their 2 cents out there, and it makes it stronger for sure. In regards to the recording, the new way of recording served us very well for some of the new tracks we did, because everybody lives all over the states. I mean, I live in Florida, Michael's in Washington, so yeah, it worked out good for us. But what really was awesome to me, and I'm so surprised and amazed, is that after all these years, everybody still sounds the same. Everybody sings the same. There's nobody like, it sounds like we recorded it, back then, as far as, a lot of people, when they get older, their voices change. But no, everybody sounds the same on this record, exactly the same. So it fits really well together, and it's still lively, and it's Novo Combo. We all know what Novo Combo is, this band. That's the thing. We know what we're going for, and we know when it sounds like Novo Combo.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like the newer tracks the newer tracks sound like the older tracks, and vice versa. You know what I mean, Stephen?
Oh, yeah.
It's not like it's Novo Combo music is what it turns out to be in the end.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it works well together.
Yeah,
for sure.
Michael, what are some of the tracks that particularly stand out to you? I know one of my favorites, Sorry for the Delay. Can't get that chorus out of my head. What is something for you as a drummer for some of the material that stands out to you?
Well, Stephen's songs, Sorry for the Delay and E-Train, are always a pleasure to play as a drummer, because they both pump really hard, and they're they're relentless. And so I have to be relentless, but also tasteful. You know, it's not bashing. It's not bashing whatsoever, to tell you the truth. But it's like, you know, metal to the floor, I'll tell you that. Metal to the pedal type of thing. And so that's cool. A couple of the newer songs I really enjoyed. The first track on the album. What's it called, Stephen? But
Don't throw your love away.
Don't throw your love away. So that's Jack Griffith, and I mean he presented that song, and it was like, man, okay, it brings it all back. Like this is why Jack is so brilliant. You know, it's just a brilliant song. His guitar parts are also, you know, really something. And he creates a weave and a web, and his vocals sound great. That's one of my favorite songs on the record. And then what's the other one? There's a couple. I don't have the thing in front of me. But there's a song that Pete and I did. Which one is that one, Stephen?
What's Been Happening?
What's Been Happening? Okay, so that's a tune that I really like, but I'll be really honest. My intention was to slow it down before it went out, and I didn't get to that in my communications. So, but I really love the song. That's a really cool song. Man, they're all good. They're all good. It's a record I can be proud of.
Yeah, man.
I was very impressed with the record, having not heard you guys before. Listening to it, it's definitely 70s rock style, a little bit of reggae here, a little bit of punk, as you say. Stephen, what are some of your favorites on the? I mean, probably the ones you wrote and the whole album in general. But what are some of the standouts?
Yeah, no, I really I don't know. I do like them all, you know, or they wouldn't be on really. But you know, when you hear songs a million times, it's hard to say this is my favorite or whatever, because I'm on to my next song. You know what I mean? I want to keep going ahead, you know. But I mean, I just love Novo Combo in general, and I'm really proud. I am proud of Jack, putting that song together, and it was a nice collaboration with Pete as well because Pete did the middle bit. You know, he did the in the melody on the middle part. Did a great, I mean, perfect job on that. And speaking of Sorry for the Delay, Jack, he told me originally that when he did Don't Throw Your Love Away, he was trying to come up with another Sorry for the Delay. He was inspired by that song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he said I was trying to get that sorry thing happening, you know, like we have the riff and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know if I really hear that, but it sounds like a Novo Combo song. So
Yeah.
so it
Right.
sounds great to me, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're thinking of sorry, great, cool. But you know, it turned out really good. I mean, that's why we put it first on the record. I just dig it, man. Nice.
You got a couple of live tracks on there. What time period did those come from? Stephen.
Back when we were, you know, at 81, 82, around that, I guess. We did a lot of live recording, you know, like King Biscuit or The Source or whatever it was. And a lot of people are taking those songs and selling them as well. And so we're kind of taking a couple back, you know. And I just thought I wanted to get another song with Jack was singing because I really like Jack's voice. And he's kind of shy about it, you know. And he's basically always telling me and Pete to take the vocal or something. I'm always going, Jack, why don't you sing it, man? You have a cool voice, man. And he does. And so I wanted to just have another song. And Axis was a big song for him. And it also shows us playing live. We're a very high energy band. You know, we were Take No Prisoners kind of band. And just Axis is a very cool tune. And I wanted it on there. And also we had Michael solo and drum solo. And Jack was really pushing hard for that. Michael was a little reluctant, you know, to have a drum solo. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know
really.
why, but but you know, it's not. I mean, just give a whole big picture of what Novo Combo is. You know, we thought it should be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and we had a lot of songs that didn't make it. but I didn't want to, I didn't want to go into like have 20 songs on a record either. I wanted
Oh,
just a regular, normal record and make
yeah.
it strong, And so that's what we did, and I think we pulled that off.
What's the length of the album?
Uh,
It's about 40 minutes,
this
maybe
album,
50 minutes, 40 minutes.
let me see. I don't have the whole length, but it's 12 songs for streaming. But if you buy the hard copy CD, you get an additional bonus track. We did a cover of the Beatles and I Love Her. And I really liked the way that came out, by the way. I thought, me and Pete thought, well, since we're ripping off the Beatles for the anthology idea, let's pay tribute to them. So we did. And so if you want to get that track, you got to buy the CD.
That's right, kids. That's right, kiddos in your 50s and 60s.
Yes, you youngins, get out there. It's novocombo.com or wildwordsrecords.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Meta. We're on there. That'd be great. And there's links to everything there. And of course, we're on all the, for streaming and all that stuff. We're on the usual suspects.
So I was going to say that, yeah, the 50, 60-year-old kids are the ones that are still buying CDs.
That's correct.
I mean, in keeping with the band's, early 80s time frame, and kind of today, vinyl is kind of making a little bit of comeback, at least amongst the old guys like me. And
definitely.
Had you guys considered a vinyl version? I know very expensive versus CDs.
Yeah. That's why it's not out at this point. We'll see how everything goes. I know. Vinyl is, I know, I love vinyl now. Not that I just play a lot of vinyl, but I do actually get recordings, get albums of things that I want to have on vinyl, even if I don't like play them, I should really get that set up. But
Me too, man. I gotta get a turntable. I got a whole library of stuff I really need to listen to. But when you go online, there's so many choices of turntables of it. It's like, what am I getting? It's very confusing.
I know. I mean, I usually wake up about 4 in the morning, like let's say, and I have this period where I'll read a little bit, and then I'll just put on my headphones and I'll go onto Spotify or Apple Music, and I'll just search for music. It's my time to discover new music from all around the world, anything. And as musicians, that's really, I've just come across this in the last 5, 6 years, or the realization that the reason we got into music is because we loved listening to music, and then we wanted to play it. And what I've found is, dude, you're not doing that enough anymore. You're always working on something else. There's all your stuff or this, or it's like, take the time to enjoy the music that people are making all over the planet. Bandcamp's another really wonderful place to discover new music. So that's one of my treasured times now, between 4 and 5 in the morning with the earphones on, and I create new playlists of artists that I discover, or artists that I might want to reach out to actually and collaborate with, stuff like that. It's like the world's gotten smaller, and it's fun. It's fun to listen to music again.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I do too. I listen to music and I listen to the radio. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of pop radio, but I'll be spinning the dials and I hit the like the Latin channel, with the Latin rhythms. Man, I just love that shit. I'll just listen to it and I'll be digging it especially when they're playing the old school stuff. When they play stuff they're trying to be pop with the tuning of the voices, I can't go for that.
Yeah.
That just drives me up the wall, the voice tuning thing.
Yeah.
But the rhythms and stuff of Latin music, I just dig it like crazy, I really like that. And I listen to the soul station a lot. I like R&B music, especially older R&B music. Yeah, you know what I mean? I get rejuvenated by that. And if I really want to really feel good, I'll go back and listen to the earliest rock and roll of all the great cats, like, Little Richard, Domino, early Elvis, which was great.
Right.
Jerry Lee, all that stuff, I love that stuff. And it makes me smile. that stuff. Oh, by the way, one little side about vinyl and CD. Last year, actually, CDs went up a bit. Actually, the demographic was getting a little lower. There's some kids starting to get into CDs, and so that was like, oh, good to see that, you know. But because I love CDs, I think they're great.
I love them too. Mainly, I love the information. The information. What I miss about vinyl is I used to memorize every player, every engineer, every recording studio, all that data that they call now. That was like what's behind the record. So you began to get to know the musicians and that were backing up the singers or whatever. So I mean, that's a big deal. That could be a whole world for young people to like be able to discover who are the musicians playing on the records that you like, you know.
Yeah, I do that. In fact, I do that now, where I'll go back because you know from old stuff, and you learn new things that you never even knew about certain things. There's information overload, but you can pick where you want to go, you know, and
absolutely, yeah, you can go there all day long.
Yeah, down a rabbit hole, big time.
I just learned this thing today. Has nothing to do. Bear with me, George. Has nothing to do with Novo Combo, but just on these finding interesting things. I read a post on Twitter X. Some guy was making about the night that Brian Eno went to see Talking Heads live in London before they had an album out or anything. John Cale had taken Eno to see the band, and he invited the band back to his house later, and Eno and David Byrne got along really great. And then they put out Talking Heads put out their first album, but Brian Eno put out the album like Before and After Science, right? And on there was a tune called The King's Lead Hat. Now, this all sounding very obscure, but the King's Lead Hat is an anagram of the name The Talking Heads. And the song, when you hear this song that Brian Eno wrote, it's like, this is like the Talking Heads. I mean, he wrote the template for the rest of the Talking Heads songs. Stephen, it's called The King's Lead Hat, and it's Brian Eno. It's like, oh my God, he just. It sounds like David Byrne, the Talking Heads. You know.
I'll check that out.
Interesting little story, you know, like Da Vinci or somebody like that, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's cool. I'll check that out. Yeah, I saw the Talking Heads back in the day. I think I saw them at the Bottom Line. I remember seeing the Ramones, you know, Talking Heads, a lot of those people. And, they really hadn't got on their. I mean, they weren't really good yet at that point. It was very early. So they were a little weak in the playing department, you know.
Yeah.
And that particular gig, it was kind of, you know, if you're not hearing the lyrics at a gig, you know, Byrne, you got to hear his lyrics and stuff.
Yeah,
you know what's happening. And even with the Ramones were so loud I couldn't even hear the guy singing.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so it was like, and I like their records. I mean, I like to hear his voice. You know, I like to hear the singer in the band for sure.
Right.
You know, they were just so like, you know, it's like, well, I'd be digging this if I could actually hear what the song is about, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But it was cool to be able to hear all those bands when they were just brand new.
Yeah, I mean, I heard them several times in Midtown, and they sounded really great. This is when they expanded the band into like all the extra musicians, and man, Steve Stevens was up there too, and
was that made Adrian Belew?
Adrian and the keyboard player, and they were like a full-blown thing.
Yeah, that was strong, super strong. Yeah,
they went completely funk, really. You know, it was just like a groove band.
Burning down the house and that kind of stuff. Really cool, very cool song.
Very smart stuff, you know.
Yeah,
it wasn't really my cup of tea, and I was a little bit of a snob, but I would go and check everything out. You know, I would go check it out, and I thought it was really smart. I don't know if that's a compliment, but now I love this stuff more. My wife's a big Talking Heads fan, so we have it on all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, man.
So, talked a bit about bands in a live setting, and clearly, live is kind of where you sell the band and you sell the music. What are the chances of Novo Combo doing a reunion gig at some point?
I would say not great.
Because of the distance?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. Like I heard Stephen talking about everybody can sing the same and this and that. I don't play the same as I used to play. I do not play the same. I don't play as much. I'm making a lot of the music just with electronics and computer stuff. I'm as creative as I ever been, but I'm not out in the clubs playing like I used to do once a week, every week in Seattle. And I also have arthritis and a few other health things. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think for me, some things are best left as is.
Well, we do have
I'd be up for making another record.
Yeah, cool. Well, we do have a couple of videos that we're going to be releasing in the next couple of weeks, and it's us at a sound check in Connecticut. A crew came from Italy, I believe, and it was real primitive. They had like a one camera shoot, I think, with a one mic, and they interviewed us and they wanted to film us playing, and it was a sound check. Nobody was there, which we always, of course, react to a good audience. But you can see us, but we do 2 songs, and you can see what we were about. You get in these performances, and I don't think there's any other performance out there where we're performing live. Now there's plenty of recordings, like King Biscuit and that sort of thing, or there's plenty of like videos where we're on Solid Gold or something lip syncing. But I think these are the only videos where you can see us really playing live. And
Wow, I don't know if I've seen that. Have I?
yeah, you've seen the videos where we're in that, we got interviewed and
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
and we did Long Long Road and we did E Train Revisited.
Right.
So I mean, when I was going through all my stuff, it was this huge massive tape cartridge thingy. Because that's what they used to use back then or whatever. It was, weird. And so I had to send it to New York to get it transferred.
Yeah.
And we took the digital version of it and I gave it to a couple video people to edit, to mess with a little bit, make it seem like a proper video.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're going to be releasing those. So I think so. I mean, in other words, for all these years, you get to see Novo Combo actually playing and singing at the same time. And I mean, now of course you just go to one gig and there's 100 people filming you,
Exactly.
But back in them days, it's just this thing, I think, pretty sure.
Michael, I feel like there's a story behind the title of the album, 45 West, 55th.
It's it's my apartment where I lived in New York City. I first moved to New York from San Francisco. I was getting over a band called Automatic Man that I had spent years on. I moved out to a place outside the city, along the Hudson River for a while, and then I just felt I've always wanted to live in New York City, so really you should get in New York City. So I moved to this location, which is in Midtown, and this is the location where I first met Stephen as well. We had a mutual friend named Bill AUCOIN, who was the manager of KISS. Mm-hmm. And I had been putting together another band, and that didn't work out. And so Bill and I were still in touch. Odd relationship, he and I, but there you go. And he knew Stephen, and Stephen knew him. And am I right, Stephen? He hooked us up, right?
Oh yeah. You would. This is what how I remember. It was like you were looking for guys,
Yeah.
something together. And
Yeah.
apparently, if I remember correctly, I was the only guy. He said, you should get with this guy, Stephen Dees. This is who you want. And
Yeah.
and so you said, okay. And, he said some nice things about me, which I can't say because I feel silly, um, but yeah, and you got the number. I mean, you tracked it down somehow because I was staying at my mom's house uh, for just a couple of days, and you called me there. I mean, it was so because you obviously called another number and they gave you that number or something.
In
But
New
anyway,
York City, in New York,
no, you called me down in Florida.
in Florida. Okay.
Yeah, you called me and you said, "Hey, this is Michael Shrieve," and I'm like, Michael Santana, Michael Shrieve, and you go, "Yes," and I go, "Oh, what's up?" And then you told me Bill AUCOIN's, I talked to Bill AUCOIN and he said I should call you because I'm looking to put something together. And
Yeah.
I was slated to go up to New York anyway because I was going back and forth
Right.
doing some things. I was working on my solo stuff, I guess. And so I said, well, I'm going up. And you were like, well, why don't you come by,
Yeah.
And then I went up and I went to 45 West 55th and up the elevator, knocked on the door, you opened it. And, you had later said that as soon as I opened the door and we hung for a second, you said, I knew this was the guy kind of thing. And then we had, we had a really good, talking about what we're listening to, what we're about. And then we went to SIR Studios and started jamming, just the two of us at first, and we just hit it off, and we just knew quickly, it's like, this is happening. This is happening. Let's do this thing. And I think the only other person up there at that time that we looked at, there was another guy we looked at that actually Bill AUCOIN knew. And I don't really want to say who it is, but we got together. What you said, well, let's check this guy out, Stephen, because I've been getting with him.
Was he a singer?
Yeah, Kim. Remember Kim? You remember Kim, right? Okay. So you said, I got to check this guy out. Do you want to check him out with me? We'll check him out together. And so, and we did. And he was a talented guy. He was definitely a talented guy. But all of his music sounded like Broadway show tunes.
He was a Broadway show tune guy.
And we were like,
He
so
was a Broadway guy.
yeah. So he was in hair and everything, like, right? Yeah, that was his thing. So so afterwards, Mike, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know, man. It sounds like Broadway songs to me. And Mike was like, yeah, you're right. It's not happening.
Yeah.
That's not where we want to go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, good. And
there was also more things about that guy that really bothered me as well. And I made sense why Bill sent him over, but it was really fucking weird. The guy had, he had a bunch of photos of himself, right? It's like,
yeah, he was all about himself. I mean, he wasn't a band guy. He wasn't a band
He was
guy.
like a Broadway actor guy, and he had all these photos. He even had dick pics. It was like, I was like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? You really think I want to see this? And so that's why I can't even believe. It's hard to believe that I even but he could sing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He
Well,
could sing.
he sang with Jeff Beck for a brief period of time
Okay.
because Jeff had come over to do a tour and he lost his singer or something,
Uh-huh.
and somebody said, "Well, try this guy." And from what I understand, reading from what Jeff said, so he had no choice. I just got this guy, and he only used him for like a brief tour, and
Right.
then got somebody else because he probably figured, "Wait, same thing. This guy's like a Broadway dude," you know. But yeah, that guy was, he was a guy, I want to be a star kind of dude. And we were like, we want to be in a band kind of dudes,
Right. Yeah. 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 That was
So-
really.
Back in the 80s.
And so after that, George, we started looking at musicians, and apparently, I think Stephen's memory is probably better than mine, but apparently we went through quite a few people.
We did. Well, from there, once we were like happening, you came down to Miami because
Right.
let's try a couple of people down here. And how we found Jack was a guy that was working with me in management said, I know this guy, you ought to check him out. He's in town, and this manager also worked with other musicians, and they had heard him play and said, well, you should check this guy out. And it was
Uh-huh.
Jack. And I called Jack up, and I don't even think Jack remembers it, but I actually went to Jack's apartment first. I went up and met Jack in North Miami or something, and we talked for a while, and I think he played me some things. And I said, well, yeah, let's get with this guy, let's give him a go. And we got together, and it seemed to gel. It just seemed to be like, yeah, this is another band guy who's talented, and he
Uh-huh.
seemed like the right guy. And so that was three guys. And then after that, we went back up to New York. It's like, well, there's way many more musicians up in New York, so let's go up there. And contemporary musicians. A lot wasn't happening in Florida back in those days. It was, I don't know. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
Casey and the Sunshine Band, I think, was happening.
Right.
Not rock. So anyway, we went to New York, and Michael placed an ad in the Village Voice.
Oh, I did?
Yes, and we got so many people responding. I mean, a ridiculous amount of people. So then we just started, over and over, okay, next guy, next guy, next guy, next guy. And then we were like, wow, is there anybody that's going to be right? We're a little, at wit's end at some point. And then we had this gal come in. Her name was Karen, and she was a guitar player and sweet girl and a nice person. And we actually were excited about that. We was like, Michael and I were like, wow, it'd be really cool if we could get a girl in the band, it'd be great,
Right,
And
right, right.
yeah, and so we were excited about that. But when we got with her, I think she even knew she wasn't the right person,
Yeah.
And she said, I tell you what, I know this guy, and he's perfect for you guys. I tell you, you're not going to have to look any further. This is the guy you want. And it was Pete Hewitt. And Pete came, and she was absolutely correct. It was like one of those things, just like me and Michael. It's like, this is the guy. This is the guy. And then we were four, and that was it.
Yeah.
Michael, Novo
Yeah.
Combo released two albums back in the 80s, an 81 self-titled album, 82 Animation Generation.
Yeah.
What led to the band's demise after the release of that album?
Of the second album?
Yeah, that's about the time you guys broke up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we lost the support of the record company for one thing. And anybody will tell you that at that point we had a good manager. Well, it was a manager anyway. He was like kind of classy, although he screwed us later. But and we had people worked in the office for us. We got paid salary, I think, Steven, something like that. I don't know. But the record company, Polydor, they lost interest. And we were also going through some things in the band. Jack had left the band after the first album, and we had another player named Carlos Rios, who I just saw on the TV from Jimmy Kimmel playing with Stevie Nicks. He's an LA guy, right? And so he plays with Stevie all the time. And I heard him on a record by a singer named Gino Vanelli. And I always thought, man, this guy is really something, this guitar player. And I thought he could fit in nicely with us and add another dimension to the group. So Carlos came in, great guy, and we did another great record, I think. But it's different than the one with Jack. This is what Stephen was talking about earlier. There's chemistry, and then there's something else. And the first album, I think we're all going through this thing now where we realize, and I've gone through this too, doing a Santana reunion record a few years back, where chemistry is chemistry. You just, there's nothing you can say. It's just there. And so, but I think we were a little down. Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong. Any would step in any time. And we were having a hard time. Management was getting weird. The record label dropped us, and kind of like it played itself out. Sometimes that's just what happens. It's
Well, I mean, actually, the record company didn't drop us just didn't drop us. Their enthusiasm waned. And
Okay.
well, I mean, there's a difference because they didn't want to
Yes,
let
there
us
is.
go.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Yeah, and because people always come and go with record companies, but we
Yeah.
still have people that believed in us. And at that point, what they wanted to do was the song "City Bound E Train" was one of their favorites. Like the guy that one of the president at the time, and I don't know, he was president at the time. But anyway, they picked the singles basically, even though we had say. But originally, they were all psyched about the song "City Bound E Train." They thought it was a great song, and they thought "Up Periscope" was great, and they thought "Tattoo" was great as far as singles go. But when it came to "City Bound," their reasoning was, well, this can't be a single because it's a song about New York subways. And they thought, well, people in Nebraska are not going to be able to relate to a song about a New York subway.
Well, that's stupid.
It's exactly. So, but then within this time of this record being out, the second record, Men at Work came out with a song called Down Under, where they're singing about Vegemite sandwiches and stuff, right? And then the president told me himself, he said, we realized that we made a mistake. That was a stupid concept that people would not relate to City Bound E Train because it was a New York song. I mean, think about the song New York State of Mind. I think nobody had a problem, with that. But anyway, and they admitted they screwed up. They screwed the pooch on that one. So what they wanted to do, instead of going right to doing a new record, they wanted to re-release City Bound as a single, a live version that we had done. And we were like, we had a bit of attitude. We're like, wait a minute. You want to go back and release a song from the first album, a live version that we did? It's like, well, why didn't you release it then if you think it's such a great song? And well, because we messed up, and they admitted it. To this day, Jerry, the president, says we screwed up that. So they were offering that, and what else they were offering us just to keep us in there was an EP. They said, well, you can do an EP. We'll do an EP with you guys. We'll commit to that. And we were offended by that, because they were so gung-ho about us, and now it's like, well, you'll give us an EP or release an old song. So we were just like down on them, it's like, well, we don't want to really be with you guys anymore. So it wasn't just them dropping, it was a series of events.
I got you.
And at that point, we started playing out and having other record companies come listen to us. And we had some interest, but it was the most interest that we had was from somebody who wanted to sort of change what the band was.
Who was that, Stephen?
It was a guy named Curry. His last name was Curry. He was from EMI.
Huh.
He was from EMI, and I forget his first name. I got a letter from him somewhere because he wrote a letter, and I got, Glenn gave it to me, and I mean, basically he wanted me to be the front guy of the band, period. And I was like, well, that's not what we are, I'm just a guy in the band, and it's like, it's just your opinion, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't want to be just the front guy in the band, I want to be in a band, where everybody sings. I mean, Pete's a fabulous singer, but I mean, he dug what I was doing. But it just was very confusing. It was very confusing, and he wanted me to make some tapes for them, for EMI, well, if you don't want to keep a NOVO combo, we can work with you. And it's like, wait, whatever. So it was just, we're disgusted by the business. And it was sort of a point, it's like, this is not about music anymore. It's crazy, it's something else. And we were always about the music.
Yeah, these are so typical, these kind of situations. And so for somebody like you, Stephen, it's not easy to deal with, if the head of the company is coming to you and say, we want to make the band about you. That's so typical of what they do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, no, this is what the band is. And if you're not hip enough to realize that, well, I don't want to be working with you.
Well, I mean, really, the strength is in the numbers. You've got you, and you have an incredible voice like Pete, and an interesting voice like Jack. It's like, I mean, the Eagles aren't the Eagles for nothing.
Yeah.
There's
Same
power.
with the Beatles. I mean,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
look at it. I mean, one of the biggest songs by the Beatles is "Here Comes the Sun," written and sung by George Harrison.
yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And he's not the best singer in the band.
yeah. Or the
But
best
he,
writer
but
in
he,
the band. Yeah,
what a great song and a
yeah,
performance. It's like you
yeah.
got to realize what we're about, man, or we don't want to work with you. But now we don't have to deal with that. We just do what we want. And that part is a beautiful thing.
Well, that really kind of gets my guns going. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe we should show them they're all fucking wrong. Um,
Yeah.
I think you
Absolutely.
did.
Yeah, yeah. But we're doing it now, a little bit late, but we're doing it.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. But
Well,
the interesting thing is like I mean, we're old now. I mean, I'm 75, so I'm, it's not like I feel old, but I kind of do. And but our audience grows too. You know what I mean? I mean, they grow with you if you allow them to, and if you allow yourself to be yourselves at your age. And so, I mean, shoot, we could still make more music.
Yeah, we have some stuff still that we didn't put out now that
Yeah,
has potential. And in fact, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an engineer. I was talking about I have some tracks that'd be nice to pull some things off and redo some things but you can actually do that now. It's
I know
crazy.
it.
And so yeah, there's a couple of things that we have. If we could just make a change there and a change there, it'd be great. So
Yeah,
I'm going to take those tracks down. He said I can do it with the whatever it is, smart stuff. And just
yeah,
see if we can work some of those songs that just weren't quite right. But
yeah. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, every day it's changing more and more, but you can definitely isolate tracks, isolate vocals, isolate anything, and work on them. And I'm considering doing that with some of my own stuff. Is just like breathe new life into them. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
who cares? It's whatever you want it to be. Who gives a shit?
yeah. Hey, listen, speaking of pulling things like that, Michael, have you seen this young gal from Germany named Sina, a drummer?
No,
Man, you got to check her out, man. She's like 27 now, but she's been doing it when she was just a kid. I think
I'll have
she's
to check her out. Maybe I've seen her and not
oh
recalling the
man,
name.
what she does, she takes classic rock songs, and they pull the drums off
Right.
and she plays them. And she's badass, man.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. It's like, wow, that is so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
into it, man. And for years she played this way on the snare drum,
Yeah.
and then it started hurting her, right? So then she
Oh,
switched over to play it the proper way, you know, and she just changed it and
wow.
immediately got back on the trip again, man.
Wow.
Really, I mean, it's so inspiring to see that, these
I'll
young
definitely check
kids.
it out. That's what drummers do now, and that's how they promote themselves. Is I mean, they have big websites and like 6 camera shoots and serious stuff, and they're doing covers. You
that's
know,
great.
they're doing covers, and that's how they promote themselves.
Like classic rock kind of stuff mostly.
Yeah, right. Classic rock.
And Drumeo is pretty cool. You've seen that, right?
Yeah, Drumio's great. Yeah,
Yeah, where somebody's never heard the song before.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
play it what would you play? That's really cool, man. I like that too.
yeah. I
And
saw
Mike,
the one
Mike,
that.
Mike has a great show about drumming as well.
Oh, I do. I really
What's
do.
that show?
It's
What's the
called
name of the show?
On the Corner with the Stick People, and it's a video podcast on YouTube. With these are the hosts: myself, Lenny White, Mike Clark, David Garibaldi, and Greg Orico. So you may not know these people, but they played with Sly and the Family Stone, Tower of Power, Return to Forever, Miles Davis. You know, and it's a lively conversation. I've been going through all of that because what I want to do now is make that into an audio podcast. and there'll be a bigger audience for it, you know. So and so I've been in podcast land for the last 3 days, just looking at what's out there now, you know.
Right.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Stephen. Yeah, it's a really great show. I mean, the people that we have as guests are just ridiculous musicians, you know. So, but it's more in a jazz vein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
What's your vein, George?
My vein? I'm more of a, 80s overly produced rock and roll kind of guy. Night Ranger, Toto, guys like that. That's sort of my thing. And then, heavy metal.
I did a tour with an artist named Tony Carey.
I know Tony. I tried getting him on the podcast, but it didn't happen.
Well, we did a tour where it was a long tour. It was Tony and Night Ranger.
Oh,
really?
It was really a long tour, and they're really nice guys. We got along great. They're very cool people. Jack and Brad and all those guys.
Yeah, they used to live in Mill Valley when I lived there in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I like Tony's Planet P project.
Yeah, it's Why Me. That was a cool tune. In fact, that whole album is very cool, very Pink Floyd influenced.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Tony's great. In fact, there's a 6 degrees of separation moment here. There's this guy selling our music, at a record. He's got his own record, and he's been selling our music without compensating us. And I saw that he was also selling Tony's stuff, right? So I talked to Tony. I go, "Hey, Tony, who is this guy that's selling your stuff?" And I told him who it was, and he goes, "That guy's a crook and he's a liar." And and there's nothing I can do about it because I'm in Germany and he's over there, and he knows this, and he does this to a lot of acts.
Yeah.
And everybody, you have to we got to hire a bunch of lawyers to get rid of this guy. It's not worth it.
I know. We went through that with Automatic Man too. It's just
they're thieves. It's simple as that.
It's very difficult to get to them too, man. It costs a lot of money to shut them down.
Yeah. So the only thing we can do is put our own stuff out.
Yeah.
Because he didn't even have a good master tape of the first record.
Yeah.
In fact, for a while you could actually hear the needle going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrible. And the volume going up and down. I mean, just terrible stuff. But we have good master tapes. So at some point we might, remaster the first record and put that out, just to at least.
Yeah, perhaps, although it's mastered pretty well, So, I mean, I've thought about that too, but except for being able to say it's remastered, I'd definitely have Chris Kinsey do it though.
Huh. Well, we on the tape that I have, there's definitely, we could lose some of the hiss on it. You know what I mean?
Huh.
But also the volume, you need a modern sort of volume like we have now, get it up to that point. Just make it where, on a playlist, it'll sound right. But, at least we can take it back and hopefully people will get it from us instead of some crook.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Hey, I got to get going, guys.
Yeah, I got to go too. So I want to thank you both for coming on the podcast tonight. The new Novo Combo album is out now. It's 45 West 55th, out through Wild Roots Records. Fantastic album. Good to see that Novo Combo is back.
Thanks, George. We appreciate it.
Thanks, George.
Once again, I want to thank Michael Shrieve and Stephen Dees of Novo Combo for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, 45 West 55th, out now through Wild Roots Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform, take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy, support the artist. For all things Novo Combo, head over to their official website, novocombo.com. I also want to thank John Lappin of Lappin Enterprises and Wild Roots Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.